really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, what is going on? Good afternoon. Brian Noe in for JMV. We are loaded. We're loaded today. Perfection denied. Ball is on the brain. Ball, of course, meaning football. That's the only appropriate ball. I love basketball. I've fallen out of love with baseball, but I still really like baseball. You know, I'm in like with baseball now. But the only ball is football. That's what I want to start with today because I was thinking about this. Was thinking about what the chances are that Indianapolis does the unthinkable. Now you might be thinking, well, what's that? What's the unthinkable? What's the definition of unthinkable? I'm looking at these mock drafts, and again, these are mock drafts. These are just predictions. This isn't the NFL gospel of what's about to unfold here or anything like that. But I keep seeing in these mock drafts, Shedeur Sanders falling. And I just started to think about it. And I'm like, you know what? If Shedeur Sanders is just sitting there at 14th overall, do the Colts do something that no one is predicting? I haven't seen one mock draft that says, hey, Anthony Richardson has been freaking awful for 2 years. No, look at me, though, freaking awful for 2 years. They need a quarterback. They don't have their quarterback for the now or the future. They're taking Shedeur Sanders. I haven't seen one mock draft person predict that. Now, for the record, I wouldn't predict it either because I think the Colts, even if Shedeur Sanders is there, they're probably going to pass. But I'm here to tell you, I think that would be a mistake. Now, this isn't fill-in shock jock radio. Like, okay, JMV's out. I got to make a name for myself. Let's talk about something crazy. No, like, really, if you think your way through this, what might seem radical or at least a big risk at first might sound like less of one after this spiel of mine over here. Okay, so think about this. Let's start with the first things. Anthony Richardson has been bad for 2 straight years, okay? If you look at what he's done, he's missed 19 games over his first 2 seasons due to injury or getting benched in favor of Joe freaking Flacco, okay? His completion rate last year was 47.7%. 47.7%. He threw 8 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. That all is disgustingly bad. So for anybody who's like, well, I mean, we spent a 4th overall draft pick on Anthony Richardson. I don't care. He's not that guy. Well, like, really, what are your chances that this guy turns the corner and is a legitimate franchise quarterback? What are the chances that not only does he turn the corner and the Colts are a player for their division, but they're a player in the AFC? He can go toe-to-toe with the likes of Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen and Lamar and like the AFC is loaded. What are the chances? Slim to none. You've got to start embracing that reality here. So the first part of this is you don't have a quarterback in Anthony Richardson. You don't have a quarterback in Daniel Jones. Those are not going to be legitimate quarterback of the now and the future options. They're just not. Their resumes would tell you that much. So if you start with that, which is, hey, we don't have a quarterback. Well, what if a legitimate prospect falls in the draft and is there to be drafted? If you look at Shedeur Sanders at least, let's start with this, has completed a lot of passes, all right? That's a good thing. That's a box that you want to check when it comes to your quarterback. Can this guy complete passes? Yes, with Shedeur. No, with Anthony Richardson. Okay, that's a gigantic step. We got a guy that can complete throws. You've got Shedeur completing 74% of his passes last year at Colorado. And you could sit here and you could dismiss everything about Shedeur. Well, look at the talent he had to throw to. Well, hey, Anthony Richardson in college had Ricky Pearsall. He's a first-round pick. There are a lot of quarterbacks in college football that are putting up much better numbers that are not throwing to first-round wide receivers like Anthony Richardson did in his final year at Florida. Okay? And he still didn't put up numbers at Florida. Like, his completion percentage, it was disgusting. It's like 57% in college. Like, that's just not acceptable. And it's plummeted. Actually, let me take that back. It was less than 55% in college. And he has not righted those wrongs in the NFL by any stretch. We're talking just barely above 50% in his NFL career. That's not even approaching good enough. He needs binoculars to see the foreign land of good enough when it comes to an acceptable completion rate. He can't even see that. He needs a telescope to maybe see, hey, that kind of looks like an acceptable completion percentage. He needs at least a telescope to see that. He's nowhere freaking near it. Not even close. Okay, so let's start with that. Shedeur can complete passes. Good. Let's check that box. He can throw on the move. He's good at throwing as a scrambler. Now, he doesn't have his father's, athleticism, which is kind of wild. It's kind of weird to see that. But he can move around a little bit. He can move at an acceptable rate. And here's the question. Which would you rather have? And this is a legitimate question. Which would you rather have in this day and age as an NFL quarterback? Would you rather have a guy who can move like Anthony Richardson? There's no talking trash or being critical or underselling his ability to move. He can move. He's an athlete. Would you rather have a guy that can move like Anthony Richardson that can't complete passes with any shred of consistency whatsoever? Or would you like a guy like Shedeur Sanders who doesn't move great? He can move around a little. I don't want to make him sound like he's Phillip Rivers and he's the Iron Deer back there. He can move around a little bit. Not a lot. Not a great athlete. He can move around a little bit. But, man, he's accurate. He can complete passes. I would much rather have the latter. Take the names out of it. Like, it kills me. These people are still clinging on to hope that Justin Fields is going to be a quarterback in the NFL one day. He's like probably a better Anthony Richardson. He can move around a lot, and he leaves a lot to be desired as a passer. Give me Matthew Stafford all day. Give me a guy who can't move and can complete throws with more consistency. Geno Smith is an okay athlete. I'll take Geno Smith over Justin Fields all day. Give me a guy that can throw complete passes. You've got to make your living in the NFL with your arm primarily. A lot of people look at athleticism as a requirement. It's a necessity. I personally look at it as a luxury. Tom Brady was winning a Super Bowl and was one of the best quarterbacks in the game in his mid-40s, okay? Not exactly like Lamar Jackson back there, okay? All right? Like Matthew Stafford still playing at a high level, can't move. All right? I don't look at athleticism as a necessity and a requirement. I look at it as a luxury. And Shedeur, he at least gives you more athleticism than Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford, gives you a lot more than that. So I would look at a passer primarily than an athletic specimen. That's just what I value. Maybe we differ with that. But good luck winning games with dudes that can't complete passes with any sort of consistency whatsoever. Now, something else with Shedeur. Big game guy. Cool in big game situations. Now, you can knock him a little bit, say, hey, he backpedals, he kind of hitches. Okay, fine. His offensive line was freaking brutal at Colorado. Okay, that had something to do with it. Some of it was on him. Some of it, like the decision-making has to be better. You can't take sacks in certain situations. All of that. But I think when you boil it down here, because we could play like quarterback tennis all day long. I could say, well, he completed a bunch of throws. You could say, well, there were a bunch of short throws, right? Like, well, this, well, that, well, this, well, that. Okay, we could do that all day. This is what it boils down to. I think there is only one legitimate reasons for the Colts not to take Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur is on the board, you can draft him. He's right there. And the Colts say, yeah, no thank you. The only legitimate reason, in my mind, and hey, you're welcome to chime in here. Feel free to do so. Love being interactive. If you can come up with another legitimate reason, I'll be all ears. I'll be all ears to hear you. But the only legitimate reason in my mind for the Colts to pass on Shedeur Sanders, if he's sitting there at 14th overall, is that you don't think he's going to pan out in the NFL. That's it. I don't think he's going to be a true franchise quarterback in the NFL. Okay, you might be right. I don't want to make it sound like I can see the future and Shedeur Sanders is destined for stardom. This is going to sound weak, but it's the truth. If someone says, do you think he's going to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL? I mean, do you really believe it? My response would be, he might. That's my response. He might. I'm not banging the table like, yes, this guy absolutely. Nobody knows that. The truth is he might be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. That might not be good enough for an organization like the Colts to take him if he's available. And I find that to be fair. That to me is a fair reason why you pass on Shedeur. I just don't believe he's going to pan out. Okay. Anything else? It's not a legitimate reason. Anybody who says, well, there's going to be a bunch of drama. Nope, not a legitimate reason. Well, Deion Sanders, he's going to be chiming in on his son, and it's going to be a circus. Nope, not a legitimate reason. Well, they have Anthony Richardson. No, absolutely not a legitimate reason. Have you seen what he's done in the first 2 years? Do you see what he projects to do in the future? No. Do not let Anthony Richardson hold you back. Well, they've got money tied up with Daniel Jones. Again, see the previous reason. If you let a guy like Daniel Jones throw you off course, you're out of your mind. Daniel Jones in 5 years has shown you nothing that he's going to be a legitimate franchise quarterback for any team in the NFL. Do not let that slow you down. $14 million is a drop in the bucket if you can find a legitimate quarterback option here. And the other illegitimate reason to pass on Shedeur would be, well, the roster isn't good enough. You know, we want to dot our I's, cross our T's. We want to get a tight end in here, maybe upgrade the offensive line. Then we think about quarterback. No. Look at the Patriots, okay? The Patriots last year, when they drafted Drake May, did not have a good roster. That was a roster with a lot of holes all throughout it. And they still drafted Drake May, 3rd overall. Had a good rookie season, all things considered. Looks to be a viable option going forward for the Patriots. And then this offseason, well, what do you know? They have all this money. We can get this guy, and we can get that guy, and we can get this free agent. And all of a sudden, if you have a quarterback in place, man, the rest of the roster looks a whole lot better. Can you imagine if the Texans said, well, you know what? We're not going to go quarterback with C.J. Stroud at number 2 overall. Our roster leaves a lot to be desired. Where do you think they would be? You think they'd be in a better spot right now? No. You got to get the quarterback. And I understand, listen, if you have a newborn baby, you'd love to have everything ready. Hey, we got the formula. We got the crib. We got the blankies. We got the pacifier. We got everything. We're all ready. Yeah, that would be ideal, but that's often not the way it works in the NFL. We want to get him his wide receiver blankie, and we want to get him his tight end binky, and we want to get him his O-line formula. No, it doesn't work like that a lot of times in the NFL. So don't let that slow you down if you're the Colts. And for anybody, and I get it, it's a legitimate pushback if you're skeptical of Shedeur Sanders panning out in the NFL. Well, what if he isn't a franchise quarterback? Fine, legit, but let's flip that. What if he is? What if he is? It's possible he is. He's a first-round prospect. It's possible that this guy who is a completion savant in college, well, what do you know? Accuracy, that means a whole heck of a lot in the NFL too. What if he is legit and you pass on the guy? I think of Washington. Think of the Washington Commanders, okay? What were they before Jaden Daniels? You know what the Washington Commanders were for the last 3 decades before Jaden Daniels? They were the Cleveland Browns. I ran the numbers. I looked at all this stuff. It's from like 1992. For basically 3 decades, the Browns and the Washington Commanders were like that Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. They were the same franchise. They both did nothing for 3 decades. It's like the Commanders made it to the playoffs 6 times, I believe, in that span. The Browns made it 4 times. Neither did anything. They didn't have a quarterback. It was a rotating door, a revolving door. I got to do, for a radio show, I got to interview Fred Smoot. Do you remember Fred Smoot, the old Washington Commanders cornerback? I got to interview him in person. It was great. And he, off the air, he started talking about the revolving door of quarterbacks. And it was like, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. You had that guy and that guy. Oh, I remember that year with that other guy. They never went anywhere. And then, boom, they draft Jaden Daniels, 13 wins, NFC Championship game appearance. They went from 4-13 to 13-4 and made it to the NFC Championship game. That is a remarkable turnaround. And that's the thing. For anybody pushing back on the Colts drafting Shedeur Sanders, if he's sitting right there, that's what you might be passing up on. Maybe, possibly. And hey, listen, I don't think that Jaden Daniels grow on trees. He's a special player. He had a special season. And I don't know that Shedeur is ever going to reach that level. But let's just say he's a legitimate franchise quarterback. That's worlds better than what you have. And if you're scoring at home, okay, Washington went from 4-13 to 12-5. They didn't get to 13 wins. My bad on that. But they went from a 4-win team to a 12-win team who made it to the conference championship game. That is a huge, huge turnaround. And again, imagine if the Colts took a mighty swing and they hit. They hit on Shedeur Sanders, and he's a legitimate franchise quarterback. I don't understand I understand some pushback, but I know this is going to be met with, who is this guy on my radio right now? What is he talking about? Shedeur and the Colts? No, thank you. On and on and on. Why? Why are you that strong with your belief that this guy is not going to be a better option and, more importantly, a legitimate option for the Colts going forward? Why? Why are you convinced? How are you convinced? And this idea that, you're pot committed with Anthony Richardson? You got to get out of that. Listen, if we're sitting at the poker table and your starting hand, I don't know what Anthony Richardson would be as a starting hand off the top of my head. Coming out of Florida with the measurables, with the playmaking ability, with the potential, maybe he's like, I'll go Jack 9 suited. Okay, I won't go suited connectors quite. I'll go Jack 9 suited. We got the Jack and 9 of diamonds over here. Maybe that's what Anthony Richardson was as a quarterback prospect. And the flop comes out like ace, king. And you're like, oh gosh, that's not really what I'm looking for. No diamonds. No, you're like, oh, geez. And all of a sudden, the poker player next to you, they make a sizable bet. Are you like, well, I mean, hey, I'm already committed this far. Let's see this thing on through. No, it's time to fold. It's time to fold your hand and go in a different direction. Look for a better spot. That's where the Colts are with Anthony Richardson. Listen, this is something that's disgusting, okay? I don't want to ruin your day, you good people in Indianapolis, but you know which quarterback is the closest comparison right now with Anthony Richardson? It's Tim Tebow. That's who it is. That's the closest comparison production-wise of what we've seen from Anthony Richardson so far in his NFL career. I looked at all the numbers. It's staggering how close these guys are. This is your nightmare coming true here if you're a Colts fan. The last thing you want anyone to do is legitimately point out, hey, production-wise, Anthony Richardson is in the same boat. He's in the same cul-de-sac as Tim Tebow. They're next-door neighbors. Anthony Richardson walks out to get the paper. Hey, Tim, how you doing? Oh, hey, Rich, what's going on? That's where they are in production. It's staggering. I won't bombard you with a million numbers here. I could. Trust me, I could. But I'll just throw a few at you. Okay, Tim Tebow in his NFL career. Attempts and completions, all right? Tim Tebow completed 173 passes out of 361 attempts. 173 out of 361. Anthony Richardson has completed 176 out of 348. That's as close as you can get. Like, I'm watching the Masters right now. That's an approach shot that's like 2 feet from the cup. And you're like, man, that's pretty close. That's really close. Yeah, you could have had a hole. You could have holed it out right there. But, man, 2 feet, that's pretty freaking close. I don't know that you could do much better than that. Like, Anthony Richardson has completed 3 more passes than Tebow on 13 fewer attempts. Again, you are just neck and neck with what those two did in the NFL. That's not where you want to be at all. We cracked on Tebow, as we should, because the guy couldn't complete passes. He completed under 48 passes, 48% completion rate in his career. Under 48%. That was his completion rate, Tim Tebow. That's what Anthony Richardson did last year in 11 starts. Under 48%. Like, how can that be? Even touchdowns and interceptions, it's better from Tebow. Tebow had 17 touchdown passes, 9 picks. Rich is sub 500, 11 touchdowns, 13 picks. Tebow's passer rating is about 8 points higher. Tim Tebow's passer rating, is this thing on? Tim Tebow, the guy that we cracked on left and right, his passer rating is almost 8 points better than Anthony Richardson's. This cannot be what you're going forward with. Cannot. And if you have any legitimate prospect on the board, you take them. And I don't think the Colts will. Because I think it's risky. Well, you know, Rich is working with this mechanics guy, Chris Hess. Okay. All right. Yeah. Maybe that'll work out for you. Listen, man. He's not going to be a franchise quarterback. Got to come to grips with it. Why would you pass on a guy who could be a franchise quarterback for a guy who's not going to be ever? Why? That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. If Shedeur Sanders somehow falls, there are some mock drafts of him going to the Steelers at 21. If he falls, I think the Colts would be crazy to pass on the guy. Why would you pass on a potential player who you could hit on and could be a franchise guy going forward? I don't know why. I don't know why you would pass for, well, the roster, well, the drama, well, Anthony Richardson, well, Daniel Jones. Well, none of that means anything. None of those things are legitimate reasons to pass on the guy. But, hey, those are my thoughts. Feel free to weigh in on that. I love getting interactive, but, hey, you can sell me that you're skeptical of Shedeur Sanders. Okay, I'll buy that. That's the only thing I'll buy. If you can bring anything else to the table, a legitimate reason why to pass on the guy, I'll listen. I'll be fair. I'll say, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. That is legitimate. Add that to the list. There are 2 legitimate reasons to pass on Shedeur Sanders if he's sitting there at 14th overall. I would love to hear this. If you got something, I am all ears. But that's the direction I would go in. All right, we got a lot to do here. Coming up next, does this guy have a legitimate point, or is he being selfish? I'm Brian Noe, in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Full steam ahead. Over there. I want to go over there. I'll move over, Swanson. I'm driving.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe, in for JMV here on The Fan. Man, look at this. I ask for interaction, and Terry says, I got you, Noe. I got you. Terry is on the line, wants to check in here on the Colts and their quarterback situation. Oh, are you serious, James? My God, I gave him the red carpet introduction, and Terry is gone. Wow. I feel like I'm at the altar right now. And my girl just left and said, you know what? Yeah, I'm not convinced that this is the guy. I'm just looking at my family like, I can't really blame her, just knowing how I am. I feel like I got left at the altar by Terry right there. Oh, man, that's unfortunate. I was curious what he had to say. But, hey, anybody feel free to check in. I say if Shedeur Sanders is sitting there at 14th overall, the Colts should draft him. I laid out all the reasons. I'll get into it a little bit later too, but I don't want to belabor the point. Hey, there's another story that I found pretty interesting here. So we got the Masters going on right now. Now, if you're not the biggest golf fan, that's fine. This goes well beyond golf, just the Masters. This applies to the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, any of the major sports that you love. This story connects to that seamlessly. So Colin Morikawa, he's a really good golfer, and he just doesn't think he needs to speak with the media, right? Says, I don't know anything. So the backstory of this is, well, I'll give you the Cliff's Notes version here, okay? This is painless. So last month, Morikawa, he had a late lead at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, okay? Late lead, it goes to hell. He doesn't win, and so instead of meeting with the media, he just left. Some people didn't like it, said, hey, what's up with that? So Colin Morikawa, he fires back and he says, I don't know anything. Now that drew major criticism. Golfer Rocco Mediate. Remember when Rocco was going toe-to-toe with Tiger Woods? That same guy, yeah, like Rocco. He chimed in and called it the, quote, biggest bunch of horse bleep you could ever say, period. I mean, that is the dumbest, most selfish garbage you could ever say, end quote. So that's Rocco. Not a big fan of what Morikawa had to say. I don't know anything. Now, we had Morikawa tripling down and saying, like, giving many reasons why he doesn't think it's his obligation to meet with the media, yada, yada. Before we get to that, I want you to hear what Colin Morikawa had to say last month. Okay, so he skips out, people question him, and then he fires back with, I don't know anything. I want you to hear this because it's important in terms of, are you on Morikawa's side or are you on the other side? Here's Morikawa, what he had to say last month.
Might bite my tongue after saying this, but to the Brandel Chamblees, to the Paul McGinleys, to the Rocco Mediates of the world, I don't regret anything I said. It might have been a little bit harsh that I don't owe anyone, but I don't owe anyone. I respect the fans. I'm very thankful for them. I'm grateful. It makes me emotional, but it hurts to hear people say this, and especially you guys, because I finished the round and I went to go sign for 10 minutes, 15 minutes for all the people after. Not a single person from media went to go follow me because I don't know. But that's me. For people to be calling me out is it's interesting. It doesn't show anything. I mean, look, I get what you guys are saying, but I was there. I was signing for every single person right after the round, whether they wanted it or not. I finished second.
Okay. Interesting right there. So Morikawa, basically what this boils down to is if somebody said, hey, Brian, what's up, man? You didn't get food at the grocery store. And I fire back with, well, okay, but I took the trash out. Did I not? Did I not take the trash out? And it's like, that's beside the point, man. We don't have anything to eat. Like, that's what Morikawa, people are like, hey, you didn't meet with the media? What's up with that? And he's like, well, I signed autographs. I did that. And everyone's like, okay. Like, but that's not what we're talking about here. So Morikawa, he's basically just thinking of himself. That's what we get to here. This is a selfish move. Morikawa is just what I call in me mode. It's just me. I don't want to meet with the media. I just had a bad round. I don't want to do it. Me. You got to think bigger than that. This is about the entire sport of golf. Having this inside access, getting some sound bites. Maybe he says something where he's emotional and lost, and this helps promote the next event or next major. The backstory matters. And so just skipping out because you don't want to do it is lame. I have no respect for that. I'll tell you what, I respect Chris Webber like crazy. Remember way back when in the early 90s, Chris Webber in the national championship game, it's Michigan and North Carolina. NCAA tournament, college hoops crown is on the line. And Chris Webber called timeout. Michigan didn't have any timeouts. It was a technical foul. Any chance Michigan had to win the game was gone. He went to the post-game press conference and answered all the questions. And I couldn't respect him more for doing that. You think that was easy? That's as tough as it gets. He's a college kid, and he's doing that. We saw this just, last week? Cooper Flagg with Duke. He met with the media. You think that was easy? Look at Duke, how that ended. That was so painful. It's the Final Four matchup against Houston. You have Cooper Flagg hit a 3. Duke goes up by 9 points with 3 minutes to go. Not only that, Cooper Flagg had a blocked shot with about 2:15 left. Duke is up by 9 with just over 2 minutes to go. Somehow, some way, it all goes downhill from there. And Cooper Flagg misses a shot in the final seconds that would have given Duke the lead. So you go from a 9-point lead with just over 2 minutes to go to your season is done and you missed a go-ahead shot. And you got to sit there and answer questions. You think Cooper Flagg wanted to do that? No, but he did it. I respect that. How can you respect Colin Morikawa just being like, man, I gave up the lead in the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I'm out of here. Freaking out of here. Like, I just don't respect that. Now, something interesting was said by Rory McIlroy. So he was asked this week at the Masters, hey, what did you think about Colin Morikawa's comments about not owing anyone anything? Like, basically, I don't owe it to the media to meet with them after any round. And McIlroy said this. Rory said, well, he's right. Not that I think he could have worded it a little bit better, but look, every other athlete, whether it be in the NBA, NFL, they're obligated to speak to you guys after a game. We're not. Whether that's something that the PGA Tour looks to in terms of putting that into their rules and regulations, but as long as that's not the case, and we have that option to opt out whenever we want, expect guys to do that from time to time. Kind of interesting, right? I didn't know that. I don't know if you guys did. I didn't know that it wasn't an obligation for golfers to meet with the media after any round. Okay, so put that into the equation here. Colin Morikawa, I mean, technically, letter of the law, he doesn't owe anyone anything. He specifically doesn't. But again, this is a selfish way to approach it. This is just being in me mode. This is, well, I don't want to, therefore I'm not going to. It's not thinking about the sport of golf. It's not thinking about promoting the next event or how this could be used to spruce the game up, add to the intrigue. He's just thinking about himself. That's it. That's all he's thinking about. And I also think about this too. If you look at Cooper Flagg, recent example of this. Technically, he's obligated to meet with the media. What's going to happen if he doesn't? I mean, really, like, what, is the NCAA going to, hit him with this significant punishment? Is any NBA team going to be like, whoa, I don't know if we can draft this Cooper Flagg guy. He didn't meet with the media after the Final Four loss to Houston. No. What's the punishment? If Cooper Flagg says, you know what? We just lost to Houston in heartbreaking fashion. I'm freaking out of here. And someone said, Cooper, you have a media obligation to meet with the media. He's going to be like, you know what? You can kiss my number 1 overall draft pick booty. I'm not doing any of it. What's going to happen if he said that? Nothing. He's still going to be number 1 pick. There's not going to be any significant punishment. So he met with the media when, yeah, it's his obligation, but he didn't really have to. So that's how I look at it. I just can't respect a golfer that's only thinking of himself. And some of the things that he had to say this week, Colin Morikawa, And I like Colin Morikawa. He's a very good golfer. I've bet on Colin Morikawa. I've won bets with Colin Morikawa. No reason to hate on the guy. I just think his stance sucks. So this is what he said, tripling down on not meeting with the media. This is what he said leading up to the Masters this week. This is just a whole bunch of habba-labba-labba-labba. He said, we talk about giving people space to be who they are. And at that time, talking about last month, blows the lead at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. At that time, it was for me to be who I was. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't even want to be around my wife. I said hi to her after we hugged, and I just went straight to the locker room. Okay, so he's, you know what? I'm done. I lost. It sucks. I just want to be alone. Okay, again, me. This is what I want to do. It's all about him. It's not about golf. It's not about the PGA Tour. It's not about anybody but him. He goes on. In that aspect, and this makes zero sense, I think there needs to be a balance, an ebb and flow between everything. I do want to be here for you guys, meaning the reporters, but here's the thing. I've been in the top 5 in the world before, and people don't come up to me and ask me questions. You just can't ask me when I'm playing well. You guys should be asking the top 10 players every single week, every single day, and just document it. Then you get a sense of who we are, and you get a flow of how that comes to be. There's a balance, right? What is this man talking about? He just said you should talk to us every day. Hey, dude, we tried to talk to you after you blew the final round in the Arnold Palmer Invitational. We tried to speak to you then. You didn't want to have it. And you come back with, well, you should be talking to us every day. What are you saying? You're not making any sense. All this is Morikawa saying, I don't have to. That's it. I don't want to meet with the media. I don't have to meet with the media. That's all he's thinking about. I'll apply this to myself. And I would encourage everybody, whatever your occupation is, try to apply this to yourself. Okay? Ask yourself, be honest. If you had to do what was basically a post-game interview after a day of work, whatever your occupation is, would you want to do it? I wouldn't want to do it. I can absolutely relate to Colin Morikawa. What if after a radio show, there was a post-game interview and I was peppered with questions, some of them very critical, right? Think about, hey, man, you blew a 3-shot lead. What happened? So the equivalent for me in radio would be, Brian, your first segment, wow, all-time bad. What happened? What were you thinking? Imagine doing that post-game interview every day. I wouldn't want to. But if it somehow helped the radio station, it boosted ratings, it led to more intrigue about the next show, and I would do it. It's a necessary evil. So if you're thinking beyond yourself, that's the way you would approach it. But Colin Morikawa isn't thinking of anything beyond himself. And that's why he's being selfish in this instance. So I just found that to be interesting. With media obligations or media interviews in general, there are some athletes that just skip it. They say, I don't want to. But I keep saying time and time again, it's just about them. I don't know what the argument would be that it's about more than just them. How is it? How do you think other golfers that do those tough interviews, how do you think they feel about Colin Morikawa skipping out? You think they look at that guy with any respect? What if somebody has this painful loss, does this painful interview, and all of a sudden Colin Morikawa is like, yeah, I just skipped that. How would you respect that? I wouldn't. I don't respect it, and I'm not even a golfer. I just think it's a selfish, lame stance that he's taking right here. But we'll see. Don't hold your breath. If he blows it on the final day at Augusta, I wouldn't be holding your breath for any media interviews afterward. It's the fight or flight thing. I guess it's the interview or non-interview thing. He's the non-interview guy. That's how he gets down. All right, we got a lot to do. Coming up next, perfection denied by a local team. Very interesting story. I love this one. I'll throw it your way coming up I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The stool because he's under 5 feet tall.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV here on The Fan, top of the hour. Dustin DePirac, talk some Pacers. Also, during the show today, we have Blink 182 tickets to give away. Huh? James, are you going to play all the small things? Like the song to indicate?
I think I've already used that one this week, but I might re-rack it. Okay.
I wonder, I'd like to hear some of like side B type stuff, like the hidden gems or I only know the mainstream stuff because that's not the the lake that we fish in, James, as metalheads over here. But you know what? I wouldn't be bad to go see him for free.
Oh, yeah.
If it's free, you and I would even go check this out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I could get free tickets, I'd gladly go.
Yeah. So there you go. We'll have some Blink 182 tickets to give out in a little while. Now, man, near perfection. This story is unbelievable. So there was a person who nearly predicted the women's NCAA tournament perfectly. Entered the ESPN Women's Tournament Challenge. This player got 62 of 63 predictions correct. They only missed one. You know which one that was? That was a first-round game between the 8-seeded Utes of Utah and the 9-seeded Hoosiers of Indiana. Huh? Isn't that beautiful? And this person went on to get the next 60 games correct. So got tripped up in the first round, thought, whatever, it's a first-round matchup, no biggie. That was the only game that was not predicted correctly. 62 out of 63. Now, this is what blows my mind. So, on the men's side, the odds of predicting a perfect bracket are ridiculous. It's 1 in 9.22 quintillion. Those are the odds to predict a perfect men's NCAA tournament bracket. Good news, on the women's side, your odds are better. Your odds are better. So the odds of predicting a perfect women's NCAA tournament bracket, that would be 1 in 120.2 billion. So, okay. Compared to quintillion, wow, our odds are getting way better. It's still 1 in 120.2 billion. And this person almost did it. The only thing they screwed up was IU in the first round. That's insane. That absolutely blows my mind. So this person, points-wise, got 1910 out of 1920. It's a little 10-point first-round loss, predicting Utah over IU. And, of course, IU won. So, yeah, that so close. So close, but not meant to be. Oh, man, you know what? I don't know what's worse. I really don't. Is it, getting the championship game wrong? That would be worse if you're perfect all the way until the very end. You're like, I put South Carolina to win it. I'm an idiot. I almost was perfect. But to have a first-round loss, it's almost like Joey Brackets. This is the souped-up version of Joey Brackets, right? Or if you do something so great, the one little blemish stands out even more. Joe Lunardi at ESPN, he does a great job of predicting which teams will make it in the men's tournament. And there are years where he'll miss just like one team. And it's like, Joey, what happened with that one team that you predicted to be in? They didn't even make it. What's up with that, Joey? And Joey's just like, oh my gosh, these people again. Until I go perfect, I'm not going to hear the end of this. This is sort of what this bracket challenge is like, to be perfect but yet miss the one first-round matchup. Oh, gosh. That'd be like, I don't know what the equivalent. That'd be like, a baseball pitcher giving up like this little dribbler single in the first inning and then being perfect from that point on. Maybe bowling. I don't know why bowling comes to mind, but maybe you spare the first frame and you go on to have like a perfect score. And not only like a perfect series. They always have a perfect series is 900. So you get 300 for each game, like 300, 300, 300, 900. There are some bowling fanatics that have 900 series. It's insane. Maybe it'd be like like just the 7-pin is bolted to the floor in the first round. You get a spare, and you go on to get strikes in like 35 more frames. You're like, my gosh, that 7-pin screwed everything up. That's sort of what it was like to predict IU to lose in the first round, and that's the only thing they got wrong. That's crazy, man. To be that close. 1 in 120 billion. They were one pick away from cashing in on that. That's wild. Blows my mind. All right. We turn our attention to the Pacers coming up next. Dustin Topirak, he's on with me. I have some hard-hitting questions for him. We got coaches being fired left and right. We got seeds up for grabs. Got a lot of stuff. That's on the way. I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Reserved for emergency calls only.
Lady, do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza? 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV here on The Fan. Like to welcome in Dustin DePierac, Pacers beat writer at the Indianapolis Star. Checking in here on The Fan. Dustin, what's going on, man? Everything good with you? Are you a Masters guy? You into the Masters over here? You a golf guy? Get into the majors?
I have it on. I'm not a big golf guy, but it is. I'm ironing stuff to get ready to go over to the arena tonight. But I do have golf on downstairs. I think Scheffler's winning. I'm not super invested, but I do. I mean, it's a cool thing to watch on a April afternoon where it looks just gorgeous in Georgia every year. So it's something I kind of put on to pass the time. I'm not a big golf guy.
Yeah, it does look beautiful there every time. Have you ever gone? I've never been there myself.
No, I've never been.
Yeah.
It
would you ever
like
want to?
You've watched it enough times. Probably. I mean, it would obviously. If I'm covering the NBA, it will never ever fit. Because it comes down to this right around the same time as probably the end of the regular season every year. So I can't imagine a circumstance where I'll be able to go until I'm done with this job. But yeah, I mean, it looks like just a fantastic experience. And anybody I've ever talked to that's been there says it's just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, no, I would love to go too. Maybe one day. Good thing I don't have an NBA obligation, so it's possible, right? I just have to rob a bank to get enough money to go there. Is all I have to do.
That part.
Yeah, there's that. It's quite expensive. I'm curious with all these firings in the NBA as the regular season is winding down. I'm sure you guys have talked to Rick Carlisle about this. Has he shared any of his thoughts about Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins getting the pink slip right before the playoffs begin?
Yeah, I mean, Tony East actually asked about it before in pregame the other day, and Rick obviously is I think he's president still of the National Basketball Coaches Association. So basically the NBA head coaches, it's not a union, but basically they're kind of professional, I don't even know what you call it. Basically, I mean, they're the people that they get together to talk about rules and everything like that. And so basically, he's always going to be defensive of the coach, always, and because that's his job, basically. I mean, it's like talking to someone who's a union boss. Like, you're never going to get anybody to say that, he shouldn't have lost his job. He's always going to be pro, the coach. But I mean, he did say, he says, He says, I've been shocked of any of the three, and he also referenced Mike Brown, going back to Mike Brown being fired right around, I think it was like right after they played them in around Christmas, somewhere in that range. And, I think he's got a lot of respect for all three of those guys individually, and he's pointed out, these are all, teams that are in the postseason. Certainly, Malone's two years shy of having won a championship. Jenkins, has, huge turnaround from last year to this, because obviously Memphis had just so many injuries last year. Was the biggest reason they were bad, but I mean, obviously got him back in playoff position. So I mean, his thoughts were just he was just shocked. I mean, obviously I think we can all look at this and say, well, there's got to be something more going on internally. That there's just no way this isn't how guys usually get fired. You don't look at usually you can kind of look at records and say, okay, well, that guy's getting the axe or that guy isn't, and that team just has to move on. And obviously these teams were teams that were competitive, and it's still, Mullins is really remarkable, but they really must have believed that the path they were on was something they absolutely had to change. They had to change it now. So it's a shocker, but I mean, he obviously expressed, he certainly wasn't happy about it. He's never happy to see a coach get fired ever. I mean, he's still taking up for JB Bickerstaff for getting fired by the Cavs last year. And as good as Cleveland's been, and obviously JB's been able to go to Detroit and put together a phenomenal season there. So, I mean, I think almost any time he goes to Cleveland, he points out how good JB was. So, I mean, that's how much of a pro coach guy, Rick Carlisle is, because that's the position he's in. But, I think that was sincerity that it really was shocked to see somebody make that kind of move a few days from playoffs that you're going to be in. It's one thing to fire a guy a couple of days before the end of the season when you're out. It's a whole different ballgame when you're going to be a playoff team, not even a play-in team, but a playoff team. That's really strange.
It is, man. It's crazy because even just looking at the standings, and we know there's a difference between the East and the West, so take that into account here. But the Nuggets are 48-32 after winning last night. The Pacers are 48-31. Both are
Right.
4 seeds in their respective conferences. It would blow my mind if today the Pacers are like, yeah, it's just not working out with Rick Carlisle. He's gone. It'd be like, what? What are we doing over? I can't believe that Denver did what they did. It still blows my mind. It's like they've lost 4 in a row and he doesn't get along with the GM. Okay, and like it's just I can't believe they made that move. I don't see how they're any better right now.
Right. I mean, the only way, the only thing you add to it is they're 2 years off a championship, and so trajectory matters. Obviously in Rick's case, and don't get me wrong, there are definitely some people in my mentions that were like, if they can fire Mike, why can't we fire Rick? I'm like, you guys are insane. You understand that, right? But like it's trajectory obviously matters. When the trajectory is going upward, like the win total matters, but more to the point, it's like, okay, well, if you were a championship team and right now you're not, you're looking at it, you have the best player in the world, whether he wins MVP or not. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, so it's like, okay, you have to make the most out of his prime. And if you're looking at a situation where you're saying, well, this guy's not going to do it, this group is not going to put it together. They have to make changes. I mean, they obviously got rid of the GM too. Basically, they just said, okay, both of you guys, we're out with both of you. Neither one of you know what you're doing, and you got to start over. I mean, I don't think they should have done it. It doesn't make any sense to me to throw away this season. To throw away a playoff. As long as you've got what's the term, a chip and chair at the table at the tournament, you got to go play that out. And it's no more. I think some people were saying, well, the worst thing that could happen is that they went further than you expected, and then it's even harder for you to make the firing. Well, first off, you made something out of it. I mean, if Malone goes and gets you another title, then your idea was wrong in the first place. Number one. Number two, if they get beat before they were supposed to, it's actually easier to justify that than to justify, basically like kind of sabotaging it 3 days before. I mean, I'm sure, I don't even remember what his first name is, but Adelman's son, I'm sure he's a great coach. I'm sure he's a great basketball mind. And just by virtue of having Joker on the floor, you're going to have a pretty organized basketball team, again, just because he's him. But again, trying to like just withstand that in a couple of days. I mean, that Memphis might have a chance because they've had time to, kind of digest this. But like Denver really doesn't have it. I mean, again, Joker being Joker gives you a chance because not only is he great, he's also like totally unfazed by anything that could happen. I mean, you get the impression that like they could remove literally anybody from his team. Okay, what time's the game today? And it's like, it doesn't faze him, but still, it's just like, it has to have a negative effect, and it's probably going to sabotage your playoff run. And it's like, why not at least find out what you could have gotten out of it and then make the change you were going to make? Even if you get to the Western Conference Finals, you don't look any stupider firing them after that than you do firing them 3 games before the playoffs.
Yeah, no, well said. How about, I saw that you tweeted out the seeding possibilities, which is interesting in the NBA right now. And technically things could change in the East. Like the Pacers could be a 3, 4, or 5 seed. The Bucks could be a 4, 5, or 6 seed. Do you see anything changing from the way it is right now that would affect the Pacers?
I mean, it's possible. It just depends on how seriously everybody wants to take this. I mean, I guess a big question that you kind of wonder about, considering who's out today, is do the Knicks want the 3? And if the Knicks don't want the 3, how willing are they to throw it away? Do they want to avoid Boston that bad? That's kind of, I think, a big question. I know that a couple guys aren't playing tonight. I think Anunoby's out. I think Josh Hart's out. So if you're the Knicks and you take a couple losses and you let the Pacers come catch you, maybe that could change. I mean, it really is the question of, okay, who's taking this seriously down the stretch? They're playing a Cleveland team tonight that's not going to play any of its all-stars. So, I mean, they, obviously the Pacers have messed around in those circumstances before, basically not easily taking it from teams that are trying to hand it to them. Watching the Wizards the other night were basically like, okay, we're literally going to take Alex Saar off the floor. Can you just win this game? Cleveland is basically saying, hey, it doesn't matter to us what happens here. Like Cleveland's just, again, they're taking the 3 All-Stars out. They're like, we're chilling. We've got the 1 seed. We can't get the 1. We can't overcome Oklahoma City at this point. There's no point in this. We're gonna rest up, chill out. We've won a bunch of games. We don't need to win that many more. For vanity's sake, let's just take where we're at, and if you beat us, you beat us. So I mean, the Pacers are in a position where they can take all those games. Orlando, I think, is locked in too, and they got another game against Cleveland on Sunday. Obviously, if you're the Pacers, you have to make some decisions in terms of, do you want to go for the 3? How bad do you want to go for the 3? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to play all those guys to the hilt? Do you want, again, if you clinch at least the 4 tonight, do you want to play, do you want Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam to play, 2 more games? Obviously Tyrese obviously has had his stuff. Pascal's got the elbow, but more to the point, he just seems tired. The guys they've asked so much from him. He really hasn't skipped much since they got him. So, basically it's like everybody's question is, okay, how bad do you want this thing? So there can be movement on the basis of if someone decides they really don't want to be where they're at, if they'd like to fall, then maybe they could move. And if the Knicks want to fall bad enough, if they're not trying to get one more win and shore up the 3 seed, then maybe that might change things. If the Knicks decide they'd rather have the Milwaukee-Cleveland path before they have to play Boston again, and the Pacers end up technically taking advantage of that, then that could shake things up. It's not totally out of the question. I think the Pacers are 2 back, and I also believe the Knicks have a tiebreaker in that case. I think they've won 2 out of 3 this year, so I think the Knicks have to lose them all, and the Pacers have to win them all. But it could happen.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, if you could look at the first round, if you could pick the Pacers' first round matchup between the Knicks, Pistons, and Bucks, who would you pick between those 3 teams?
Well, you couldn't play the Knicks. They're not going to be able. The Knicks can't fall all the way to 5. So it's either the Knicks get the 3 or the 4, and the Pacers. And the Pacers either get the 4 or the 5. So I don't think nobody else can catch the Knicks. So the Pacers can't play the Knicks. So it's either the Bucks or you either get the Bucks or the Pistons at the 5 or the 6. So whether they're the 3 or the 4, the Bucks and the Pistons are the 2 possible options. My simple answer is, if Milwaukee has Damian Lillard, you'd rather have Detroit, and if they don't, you'd rather have Milwaukee. I feel like obviously Giannis is a force, but I think you can get them. If Giannis has to carry them entirely, I think the Pacers are enough to beat them. I don't think they're a better team than they were last year at this point. I think they've got some guys that are piecing it together. Obviously, that dramatic comeback they had the other night was the only reason the Pacers hadn't clinched the 4 already. They were down 20 to the T-Wolves going into the 4th. They've got some pieces that have stepped up. Kevin Porter Jr. In particular has really done a good job, I think, of taking on the point guard minutes, a lot of point guard minutes with Damian Lillard out. So they are still dangerous. I'm not trying to act like the Bucks without Dame are some kind of trash, but you add even a weakened version of him. He's still a guy. He's just so clutch. And he can have just those nights where he absolutely goes off. And there were a couple games in there where he really carried them. In last year's playoffs when they didn't have Giannis. So I think that's kind of the big key for me is if and they do tend to report on the bright side of things over Milwaukee, giving you a sense that maybe they're going to come back. That entire first round, we're like, Giannis might be back, and Giannis never came back. So we'll see as far as that's concerned. But I would think, that Detroit team still looks good. If you have a healthy Cade, I don't think they're going to get, Jaden Ivey, I think is done for sure. But and that team's going to want it bad. It's definitely going to be a scenario where I don't care who plays there. They're winning game 3 of that first round series because it's been that long and Detroit's had that much time to kind of just well up inside and the amount of emotion that's going to be there at Little Caesars Arena is going to be really tough to get by. I don't think anybody's beaten them in game 3 of that series, whether they're the 5 or 6. So Detroit's dangerous. I think they're less dangerous than a Milwaukee team that has Damian Lillard, but more dangerous than one that doesn't.
He's Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. I'm curious, spark my memory here, Dustin, because I'm just looking at the end of the NBA season, and it's a mixture of just blatant tanking or some of these playoff teams just sitting all of their guys out. Cleveland sitting all of their main guys out tonight against the Pacers. Boston last night sat all of their main guys. When you go back to the David Stern era, because I literally don't remember, what was it like toward the end of a season? Was there just blatant tanking or teams that had their playoff spot, they're resting all their main guys? Did that happen at the end of his era?
That's a great question. I was covering college basketball for most of that, so I didn't see it up close all the time. I'm not on the impression that it was this incredibly, incredibly ethical era. Some of it was different. You have to remember, you go back to Jordan, Mike wanted to win 72 games, bad enough to, I have no idea how much they won the East by that year, but he just wasn't trying to take any games off. But I do think, I don't know when this started, but, obviously the general kind of load management view of this has changed things. But I mean, there's reasons why it's like that. I mean, I think that's a big reason why LeBron James is an All NBA caliber player at 40. Because he's had his, basically it's been managed for him for that many years. He's made a point to be like, okay, like I'm not going to overdo it on things that don't matter. I'm going to, save myself for what does matter. And so you've seen guys, I think, being able to elongate their careers that way of just taking a couple games off here and a couple games off there. I see a difference in these guys, a couple weeks ago when they had a back-to-back against Brooklyn, they all looked dead, like absolutely dead. And they had 2 days off and they were dramatically better after a day of rest, And so I think I think a part of it is probably, just the sort of guys there were then. But I mean, I think the medical, training stuff has legitimately changed things. And I don't know where the tipping point was. Where you started to see it all the time. But I mean, I think it became clear at a certain point that that's what the science says, that these guys are better if you give them some time off their feet. And they're also playing a higher paced game than they used to, as much as it was more physical and brutal. I mean, you were walking the ball up the floor and you're playing games in, you had playoff games in the 60s, which sounds absurd. And in this case, you're playing halves in the 60s most of the time. So, it's different basketball. It's a different game. But I mean, I think if you watch them all the time, I mean, I'm looking at it, watching, just saying, okay, I just covered the Pacers and saying, okay, would it make sense for them to go all out and try to get 50 wins just to do it? No, it doesn't. I mean, I know what, how much, treatment Tyrese Halliburton gets with his back. I mean, you saw him kind of go down hard the other day, and I think everybody took, a deep breath, like, oh my God, that's the worst case scenario right there. And he got up okay. He said he just had a floor burn that kind of cut up. But the last thing you need is for him to be worn down and not get the best version of Tyrese Halliburton. And again, Siakam he's had 2 games that he's missed in the entire time he's been with the Pacers, one for personal reasons, one for elbow bursitis, which I think was more just, you need to give this guy a day. And so I think more teams are taking advantage of it toward the end of the year. But, I think, and are they tanking more? I mean, yeah, but they also, because they've seen over time how important it is to get the best guy. I have no idea how much literal tanking the Spurs did before they got Wembanyama, but whatever it was worth it. The Pistons were terrible for 4 years, but what happened? I mean, they got, the Pistons and the Rockets are both, very dangerous looking teams. And why are they dangerous? Because they stacked, top 5 picks. They got a bunch of them in a row, and then they grew up, and now they're a problem. So, you need to get there. I mean, the Wizards in particular, and I think, you don't want to cast aspersions. I can't prove that they were blatantly tanking, but they didn't play Alex Sarr for the last 6 minutes and 17 seconds of that game, and he was a beast, and they couldn't guard him. So do I think Alex Sarr could have changed the outcome of that game? Sure could. But it's like, does the Washington Wizards need an 18th win? They sure don't, And they're probably a couple players away from being pretty good. I mean, Sarr looks like a guy you can really build around. Bob Carrington's a nice player. Keontae George is a nice player. Corey Kispert's a nice player. They look brutally bad some nights. But that's a team that's growing. And you get somebody else. You get Cooper Flagg. You get Ace Bailey. You get VJ Edscombe. You can change the trajectory of your franchise by just not having too much pride to go lose games. And so, again, obviously the Spurs time is coming very, very soon. Very soon. If it's not, I mean, they might be a playoff team next year. And so, again, the Detroit's time is now. Houston's time is now. And, again, those 2 teams, I mean, they were terrible last year. Detroit was atrocious last year. And they're a problem. I mean, because everything finally came together, and they made some other moves, got a head coach, got a couple of veteran guys. But there's a sense that the Pacers didn't have to go down that route because of the Halliburton trade. They were fortunate enough to get a 24-year-old guy who was ready to go into his prime. And it's like, okay, what's the point of waiting any longer to try to get somebody else? I think Mathurin made a difference, but they didn't have to go get somebody to turn themselves into a playoff team. But Detroit got Cade, Ivy, Osar, Jalen Duren, and now they're rolling. So I can't hate on anybody who's tanking.
Yeah, hey, NBA allows it. Why wouldn't you take advantage of it? I get it. All right, Dustin, we'll let you get back to ironing stuff and checking out the Masters before the game tonight, man. But appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. There he is, Dustin Dopirak, Pacers beat writer at the Indianapolis Star. You gotta love a media guy ironing stuff. Do you not? Yeah, I need to iron more stuff. That's one of the things I take away from this. I'm very lax on ironing. And I need to step my game up. That's basically how it works out. You, James, on a scale from 1 to 10, how big of an ironer are you? Is that the right way to ask the question? I don't know. 10 being the most. Where are you on the ironing scale?
I would say I'm probably about a 1 or a 2. I think last week was maybe the first time I had ironed anything in a couple of years. I randomly decided to iron a T-shirt I have. But I mean, all I wear is black T-shirts and jeans, so I really don't need to iron it all that often.
It's straight out of the metalhead, closet playbook. Do I go with this black tee or that black tee? So you don't have to do it that often. I get it.
I am always choosing between which band shirt do I want to wear today, essentially.
Do you have Blink 182 on today?
I do not have Blink 182 on.
Yeah. We've got Blink 182 tickets to give away a little bit later today. Yeah, man, listen, getting back to what Dustin was talking about with the tanking stuff, and look, I get why you do it. I don't know why Utah won last night. The Utah Jazz beat the Blazers in overtime. And it's like, what are you guys doing? You guys have less ping pong balls now. Why would you go and win? Why? So what he's talking about with the Wizards against the Pacers, you can tell they're just like, all right, Indy isn't scoring a lot of points, and Alex Sarr is pretty freaking good, so we need to take him off the court immediately. And they're getting away with it. And some teams are doing way more than that. Look, I'll put it this way. If you could drive as fast as you could on the freeway, like, why wouldn't you? I mean, maybe you would say, all right, it's a little dangerous to go over 100 miles per hour, but I'm absolutely going at least 90-something, right? Like, but if it's up to you, you would go most likely much faster than what the speed limit right now allows, right? On 65, is it not, James? Is it not 55 on 65? Is that right? Is the speed limit 55 over there? Which it blows my mind on 65. Like, it's every time I'm in Indianapolis, I'm like, how is this the speed limit? How? I'm recklessly driving right now, and it doesn't even feel like I'm going fast at all. But if you could go as fast as you wanted to, you might go really fast. So the point I'm making is, apply that to the NBA. There really is no speed limit in terms of resting healthy players. Whether you're blatantly tanking or your playoff spot is solidified and you just rest all these dudes, you can drive as fast as you want. So why wouldn't you? It's really on the NBA for not having a speed limit. But I can't fault these teams that take advantage of there not being a speed limit. Like, for instance, the Celtics last night. So the Celtics, they got crushed by 20 points against Orlando. They lost 96-76. The Celtics, right? And their injury report yesterday was just a comedy show. Listen to this. It sounds like these guys might die at any time. It sounds so significant. Like, oh my gosh, are these guys going to be able to make it? Jaylen Brown, injury report last night for the Celtics. Jaylen Brown, right knee posterior impingement. Like, whoa, what is that? Questionable. Everybody else is out. Drew Holiday, out. Right shoulder impingement. Al Horford, out. Right knee sprain. Kristaps Porzingis, out. Return from illness reconditioning. Okay. Jason Tatum, out. Left ankle sprain. Derek White, out. Left ankle sprain. Everybody not named Al Horford played the night before against the Knicks. Kristaps Porzingis went crazy against the Knicks on Tuesday night. And then last night, he's out due to return from illness reconditioning. And it's like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing here. Celtics aren't playing anybody, and they're gearing up for the postseason. And the NBA is just like, all right. I mean, sometimes you play your stars, sometimes you don't. I guess, the people in Orlando, screw them, right? They don't get to see any of these named players. They get, Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard. Hey, you won by 20. There you go. It's just crazy. Tonight, Cavs, Donovan Mitchell, out. Darius Garland, out. Evan Mobley, out. Max Strus, out. So if you're checking out that game in Indianapolis, it's like, well, you're not going to see any of the named players. They're not there. It's just weird what the NBA allows. They allow you to do whatever you want. And it's not good for the game. It just isn't. I'll give you a story right around the corner real fast, because the gambling aspect absolutely matters. And I'll tell you what, gambling on the NBA can be maddening. I'll give you an example of that around the corner. Also this, you never know what someone else might be going through. Crazy story as far as that goes, too. I'm Brian Noe, in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. Yeah, man, gambling on the NBA can be a wild, wild ride. Man, these players in and out of the lineups, sometimes it can be to your benefit, sometimes not so much. One of my friends, Jeff Schwartz, he's a former NFL offensive lineman. So I do a show with Jeff. And so he texted me the other night. He was like, hey, so the Lakers were playing the Thunder for a second straight time. And the Lakers it was reported they were resting all their main guys. And so Jeff texted me and he was like, hey, I'm going to play the Lakers team total under. They're resting all their guys. And I'm like, yeah, makes sense. Next day, 180. It's like the Lakers are playing all their main guys. And I'm like, well, that's not good for Jeff's bet at all. And he lost. It wasn't even close. So that's the thing is, not only are players sitting out, it's really hard to figure out who's in and who's out because sometimes the injury reports are completely misleading. So make no mistake, gambling drives a lot of interest in sports these days. And so what's going to happen as a ripple effect of all the either tanking or leaving healthy players out of the lineup, if you've got your playoff seeding set, whatever the case may be, the ripple effect of that is there are going to be people that gamble on the NBA that say, it's not worth it. I'm not doing it. And then a lot of those people aren't going to pay attention. That's not good for your sport at all. So it's just become the Wild West with as much tanking that goes on and as much healthy players out of the lineups. Again, we see it with Cleveland tonight. All their main guys are out. Last night with the Celtics, it sounded like these guys are, holy cow, are they going to be able to play in the playoffs? It's like, yeah, all of them played the night before and they were fine. It's just insane where it's gotten to. Okay, as far as you never know what someone else might be going through, this story with Braden Smith of the Indianapolis Colts, very interesting. So this was an interview that came out in Tuesday's Indianapolis Star. So Braden Smith missed the final 5 games of last season because of a personal matter, and he provided a lot of context as far as what those personal matters were. And so Braden Smith sat down with the Indianapolis Star, and he detailed that he had an obsessive-compulsive disorder. And so he spent 48 days in a treatment facility. He turned to a psychedelic drug. Like, this is a whole thing. Listen to his quote right here. Braden Smith told the Indy Star, I wasn't physically present. I was physically present, but I was nowhere to be found. I did not care about playing football. I didn't care about hanging out with my family, with my wife, with my newborn son. I was a month away from putting a bullet through my brain. It's like, holy hell, things are real now. Like, wow, what a statement. And so he was diagnosed with religious scrupulosity. And it's like, oh, whoa, what is that? What's going on here? So this was according to Stephen Holder, writes for ESPN.com, does a tremendous job. So his story about Braden Smith, he wrote, according to the International OCD Foundation, religious scrupulosity differs from the healthy practice of religion because it is driven by anxiety over engaging in actions that might offend God or be seen as blasphemous. This creates obsessive behavior, including constant prayer or repeated repentance that can begin to dominate a person's daily life. Okay, so we understand what's going on here, right? He's starting to freak out like, oh, I had an improper thought. Oh, I haven't prayed enough. Oh, and then it becomes this anxiety-driven thing that's fueling how he behaves in his day-to-day life. And he said, there's only one person that was ever perfect, and that was Jesus. When you're trying to live up to that standard, actually live that out, it'll drive you nuts. And so he went to the treatment facility, helped a little bit. Then he turned to this psychedelic drug. It's called ibogaine. And he traveled to Mexico, used the substance coupled with ongoing therapy. He's in a good place now. And he said he used to spend 3 to 5 hours a day in his head doing compulsions. It was so exhausting. And so you think about this stuff, and I immediately think about doing shows. You know what I mean? And maybe not knowing the full story. There are times where, hey, listen, it is black and white. This player is struggling. He's not productive enough. As long as you're not personal with what you say, I think you're okay. But there might be some more context that you just don't know about. A lot of times it's injuries. This guy is dragging his left knee. His left shoulder is completely jacked up or whatever the case may be. It's really impacting his production or lack thereof. Sometimes it's mental. That's the one thing. You might see a guy laboring through an injury. You might see some physical limitations, but you don't see the mental stuff. Ever. You don't see that. You don't know that. And so that's one piece of the puzzle that could be a significant piece that you just don't see. You're not even aware of it. So I always worry about that when you're evaluating any player and their performance, or if they're not getting the job done or what have you, where imagine if you came out here and you're like, where's Braden Smith? He's gone for 5 games. Personal matter. What's going on here? Where is this freaking guy? And all of a sudden come to find out this is what he's dealing with. My gosh, that changes everything. So, and that happens well beyond sports too. Look, I give my mom credit. My mom has all the patience in the world. I am not programmed the exact same way, but if I'm home and we're driving around and someone's just being a moron on the road, I'm like, what's this freaking guy doing? And she'll almost always say, hey, you might not know what he's going through. Maybe it's something significant. She'll always think like that, and I give her credit for it because there are times where that is true. And even if it's not, you're just kind of extending some grace. That's what you would want in return. So it's something important to keep in mind where you don't know for sure exactly what someone else is going through, especially a stranger, especially someone that you're not personal friends with. How would you know? How would you know for sure? So I think it makes sense to at least leave that door cracked or wide open that someone might be going through something very, very serious. With that being said, also, you got to find the middle ground. Because if we're talking sports here and someone just isn't getting the job done, it would sound ridiculous to say that every single time. You know what I mean? What if Michael Pittman Jr. has a big drop in a key moment and he's just getting crushed, and you're the guy that's like, well, but hey, maybe there's something serious in his life going on mentally. I don't know. You can't play that card every time. So it's like you have to leave the door open, but you can't rely on that every single time either. It's this weird middle ground here. But I think in this day and age of sports, it's at least becoming acceptable for athletes to talk about their mental challenges. And that's great. I think that's really good. The one thing, though, is I don't want this to become too serious, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Sometimes athletes point to that when it's really not at play. You know what I mean? And when it's not legitimate, that does a disservice to the people that do suffer from legitimate disorders, right? So that's the thing. There are some athletes that think, it's this and maybe it's that, and it's not. And that does a disservice to the ones that are really battling through something. So I just hope that because it's becoming more open, I hope that it doesn't become a trend to the point where athletes are pointing to mental health and at sometimes it's a cop-out and it's not true. It's not actually going on, because the ones that do suffer from it and are really going through some stuff, and a lot of athletes have, that's not cool for them at all. Because when people start to kind of roll their eyes oh, okay, that's not cool. That does a disservice to everybody who's really fighting through something. But crazy story with Braden Smith. I hope that he's in a good place now and continues to be there, because I don't want anyone to go through stuff like that. That's a whole thing, to say the least. All right, feel free to check in. You're more than welcome here. I said almost you're more than willing. I don't know if you're willing, but you're more than welcome to check in. I'll get back to the Colts here at the top of the hour. Looking forward to talking to Chap. Mike Chap will join me at 5. I've got some thoughts about what they should do at QB. I know there'll be a lot of pushback with that, which is fine, but I absolutely think if Shedeur Sanders is on the board, that's absolutely where they should go. I would expect them not to do that whatsoever, but I'm interested to get Chap's thoughts on that at the top of the hour. Coming up next, hilarious quote from last night, and I will shift it to a local team of interest. That's on the way. I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV here on The Fan. Now, I did have Terry call in last hour, and I gave him a rousing introduction coming back from break, and he left me. Now, I do have word that Vic is on the line, and I'll give Vic a rousing introduction. You know, I hear this guy is a stand-up guy. I hear that, he's got a very quality investment portfolio, upstanding citizen, all that good stuff. Vic is on with us here on The Fan. What's going on, Vic?
Hey, Brian, those are all lies, by the way. But I will say this. Here is a reason why I think the Colts passed on Shedeur Sanders. I was convinced at the end of last season, whenever they kept Shane Steichen and they kept Chris Ballard and they decided to run it back with Anthony Richardson and they bring in a guy like Daniel Jones to quote-unquote compete, they don't really want to compete. It's not – this year is a wash for them. They are hitting the reset button. They want to suck. It's planning for Manning. It's Arch. That's the way that they want to go, and they want to do it next season. So, I think if Shedeur falls at 14, I think if the Colts are smart, they're acquiring picks. They then trade with the Steelers and try to get their number one for next year. And then I think you see a fire sale at the trade deadline. I think Pittman's probably gone, maybe Jonathan Taylor. I think they try to stock up picks. And they try to rebuild this thing for the future. I mean, as Ballard said, we're not close, and we're not even in the neighborhood of close. I think that's why you pass, and I think you try to revitalize with a new GM, a new coach, and a new quarterback Arch Manning next year. And this year is planning for that.
Interesting stuff, Vic. I really appreciate the call, man. Those are good reasons, laying them out there. I'll say this. There are a couple of things here where, look, I said there's only one legitimate reason. I think Vic added two. Okay, I'll give him credit for two legitimate reasons. So I think we're up to three. The first legitimate reason is for not drafting Shedeur. If he's there at 14 for the Colts, is you just don't think he's going to pan out, right? That's a legitimate reason. The other legitimate reason, and appreciate the phone call, Vic. Appreciate you checking in, man. The other legitimate reasons are you're looking forward to the 2026 draft, okay? You're not convinced, and that sort of ties in with you don't believe Shedeur is going to pan out. He's not going to be a franchise quarterback. Okay, that's kind of tied to you're looking more so to the 2026 draft. So it's kind of 1A, 1B, but you could split them into two different. They're a bit different. And yeah, that does make some sense. Between those two. But yeah, who says you're going to be, but the other part is that's good for the Colts. Is that good for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen? They want to hold on to their jobs. You could look at the Giants. The Giants could draft Shedeur Sanders at 3. Most likely he'll be there at 3. I don't see the Browns taking a quarterback. I don't see somebody pole vaulting up to get Shedeur there. So he's probably going to be there at number 3, but comparable regime. The head coach, Brian Dable, the GM, Joe Shane, they're on the hot seat. And they went and got Russell Wilson. They got Jameis Winston. They could go young. They could go with Shedeur, but they're looking for, hey, we get some stability. At least Russell Wilson is better than what we've had lately, production-wise. Maybe not by leaps and bounds, but he's better. And we want to win games. We want to keep our jobs, right? So I'm really curious how the Colts approach this with their GM and head coach tag team right there. The other legitimate reason is trading down. I mean, that's okay. If somebody trades up to 14 and gives the Colts a pretty good haul, and they're not convinced Shedeur is going to be a franchise quarterback, and they move down and acquire a lot more picks, acquire more capital, okay. Yeah, that makes sense too. But, I mean, I could poke holes in all of those things. What if there's not an offer to drop down? Well, then that's not on the board. What if any number of things with Arch Manning the next year. What if Arch Manning doesn't go out in the 2026 draft? That's a possibility. What if the Colts aren't anywhere near getting Arch Manning? What if they win more games than it's expected? That's possible too. They play in a horrible division. So there's no guarantee you're going to be in range for Arch, or if you're far enough away, it's going to cost an arm and a leg in draft pick compensation, So there's a lot there, a lot to consider. I think Terry is back with us. I'm not giving him any introduction right now because I gave him a rousing one in the first hour and he dropped it. Okay, good. No rousing introduction, and you're here for us, Terry. That's the formula. What's going on, bud?
I'm here. I want to share, or I want you to talk a little bit about the franchise quarterback and the traits that we would like that man to have. Top 5, top 3, top 10, however many. And let's compare our quarterbacks currently on the roster to those traits.
Yeah,
He's got to be a leader. He's got to be a leader. He's got to be accurate.
Yeah.
He's got to be mentally sharp in being able to read the action on the field, pre-snap, post-snap, in the locker room. Yeah. He's got to have a strong arm. And in my mind, the best bet for a franchise quarterback comes from a strong father in the home. Shadir has that. And he's a winner. His accuracy is unbelievably high. He's a leader, I do believe. I'm not pushing for him, but your idea really triggered me, and I wanted to call and let you talk about how obvious Anthony is not what we want.
Yeah.
He's not a leader. He is not accurate. He has nothing under 30 yards. If you want him to throw to a tight end, he better be wide open and have lots of time. And I know for a fact, absolute fact, that he's a Ricky Williams incarnated.
Yeah.
Big
well,
time.
Hey, man, I appreciate you checking in, Terry. Yeah.
Yep, you bet.
Go ahead.
I'll be listening.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Sorry, I didn't know. I didn't mean to cut him off at all. But, yeah, the traits, leader, accurate, mentally sharp, doing all the pre-snap stuff. There's a lot. I'm not saying Anthony Richardson is dumb. There's just a lot going on in a very short period of time. And he's certainly not accurate. I don't think he's good enough to be a leader. Like, you can't have a completion percentage under 48 and be a candidate to be a leader. You're not productive enough to be a leader. I think if he's productive enough, he could be, but his lack of production doesn't allow him to be. It's just clear to me that Anthony Richardson is not the guy, but like really thinking about Shadur, that's a legitimate thought if he's there at 14. We'll get to Mike Chappell coming up next. See what Chapp thinks about this. What does he think about Shadur if he's there at 14? Colts probably don't do it. I'd be very surprised if they did. But does he think it makes any sense whatsoever? We'll get his opinion. He'll weigh in. I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Natural, brother. It should flow out like this. Look, man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, pleased to welcome in Mike Chappell, CBS 4, Fox 59. By the way, I'm Brian Noe, filling in for JMV. Chap joins us here on The Fan. Chap, what's going on with you, man? You a Masters guy? You pay attention to golf over here?
Yeah, when it gets to Saturday, I will. Until they get down to the net cutting time, I can watch highlights. So right now, I'm in the process of driving, hitting 65 south, going to Franklin. My granddaughter's got a St. Jude's 8th grade kickball game in Franklin, so I'm gonna go down there and watch St. Jude kick some Franklin butt.
There you go. What's the spread on that game, Chap?
Probably 5.5.
Five. Really? Might be a 6-goal beatdown, is what you're telling me, huh?
They lost. They won their first one like 38 to something. They lost their second one 35 to something. So they take the over. Normally the over is good in kickball.
I like that. Okay, I will not play many unders in kickball. We'll take points being scored over here.
No. Save your unders for like soccer.
Okay, yeah. Soccer, hockey from time to time, sure. Before I get into the Colts with you, I guess it could be tied to the Colts, but I was just thinking about, like, last night, Luka Doncic was back in Dallas, and there was a lot made about that, and it just got me thinking that was a pretty big game to attend. The first game where Luka came back as a member of an opposing team, and I've talked to you about this before, and you've been to a lot of big sporting events. Would you put the Colts winning the Super Bowl at the top? Is there something else where if you were, around a bunch of people and they're trading stories, oh, I was at this game, oh, I was at that game. What's your, oh, I was at this game? What's the top of your list?
Yeah, it's funny how I've always said that the most significant game in Indy Colts history, look out, that guy went right through the stoplight. In Indy, I know. If I have an accident, you guys can call 911 for me.
Absolutely.
But the biggest game in Indy Colts history was not Super Bowl, but the AFC Championship game when they came back from 21-6 down at the half to beat New England for a lot of reasons. You have to get past New England. And then the Super Bowl is huge. So many of Manning's games stand out to me. Him coming back to Indy was sort of like Doncic going back to Dallas, sort of. They didn't trade Peyton. They cut him for a lot of good reasons. And they didn't just walk away from a healthy Peyton Manning. But then, I've covered, when I was at the Anderson newspaper, I covered some Cincinnati Reds World Series, the Big Red Machine. And two games that stand out was Anderson, Phil Buck at Madison Heights, foot basketball. They always were sending Madison Heights players to IU. Bobby Wilkerson, Ray Tolbert, Stu Robinson, Winston Morgan, and all these guys. And I was fortunate enough to cover IU's 76 championship game against Michigan in Philadelphia. And then I was fortunate enough to cover IU's national championship game in '81 in Philly. So that's good. When covering Final Fours is just something else. It just is. When I was at the Star, I covered as part of our tournament. I covered like the East Regional one year, and it was George Mason, Jim Larinaga's team, who made it here. That Cinderella, that was really cool. I think where are they from? Fairfax, Virginia, I think is where the university is. So I went there for a couple of days. So I've been blessed. I've always told people that how many people are that listen to you and you talk to just hate their jobs. Just absolutely. They cuss all the way to work. They put in their 8 hours. They cuss all the way home. I've loved my job since I started working newspapers in '74, whatever it is. And they pay me to do it. I still enjoy it. And I just feel so fortunate that, not a lot of people get a chance to find what they've done. A lot of people know what they want to do, but the opportunity's not there. So I'm blessed. And as long as CBS 4 and Fox 59 deem me an asset, I'll keep doing it. So I just enjoy it. And so many great personalities, but the games are great. I mean, they pay us to go cover great events. So, got a chance to go to Tokyo during the preseason with the Colts. I never would have done that. I'm hoping to go to Berlin this year. So it's just really cool.
That's awesome. And you triggered a memory. I know you'd be able to sort this out, but the AFC title game you're talking about between the Pats and the Colts, I just remember Riche Caldwell in the big eyes, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember if he dropped a pass or he was – remember you could force a guy out of bounds and it was on the officials to determine if you would have come down inbounds. Remember that play in the back of the end zone? How did that work out?
It was called a touchdown because I can't remember if he was forced out. He may have been forced out, which now you can do. Yeah, and that's a game that so many things that stick out. They had 4 linemen score touchdowns, which was crazy. Wow. Offensive and defensive linemen. So again, it was the biggest play, the Joe Dice touchdown. Well, yeah, but no. How about Marlon Jackson's interception and sealed it? Brian Fletcher going to Peyton Manning and saying, "Hey, I can do this," and he did. So it was just such a tremendous game. And then, oh, by the way, there's a Super Bowl, coming up. So, but the AFC Championship game at home against Brady, and stopping Brady at the end was just how it had to be.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge comeback, no doubt about that. Okay, I've been talking a little bit about the Colts, their first-round pick. On a scale from 1 to 10, how shocked would you be if the Colts drafted a quarterback early in the draft?
First day, second day, God, I hope they don't. Gosh, I hope they don't. Pardon me. I think they'll draft one later, similar to Sam Ellinger in the 6th round, I think it was, whatever year it was, 21, whatever. I think they do that. They've got enough quarterback issues without drafting one on round 2 and inserting him into the open competition. That would make no sense to me. I don't care if somebody that they've got high in their board falls. I just think they've got other tight end, offensive line, linebacker. They've got to let Richardson and Daniel Jones figure it out and not insert somebody else in the mix. Although adding a developmental guy later on, I don't know that I would do that, but I think they will do that.
Somebody checked in here and I think it was Vic, was saying, hey, they're not going quarterback this year. They're looking to quarterback next year. What do you think? It makes some sense. Do you think that they're looking at it from that point of view? You're trying to fine-tune the roster first? What do you think their approach is with finding a quarterback in the future, assuming it's neither Anthony Richardson nor Daniel Jones?
Well, I've taken the approach that it's got to be Anthony Richardson or else there'll be different people in positions of decision-making. So I hope that Richardson shows the necessary improvement. I'm skeptical just because of the information that I've got as far as what he's shown us so far. But the idea that, boy, they can get their guy next year in 2026, it's supposed to be a better quarterback draft, and they're not going to be bad enough to where they're going to be top 5. I don't see it. This roster is too good for that. This is not a bad roster. And if they get competent quarterback play from either or both guys, I just don't see them being a 5-win team or 4-win team. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you I just don't see the way, well, boy, next year. No, their chips are sort of in this year, and I still say it needs to be Richardson, because if it's Daniel Jones for whatever reason, he'll be unsigned at the end of the year. So you give him a big contract. So no, I just think that so much of this franchise's future, whatever you want to call the future, 4 years, 8 years, whatever, is tied to Anthony Richardson being the guy. Because if he's not, I just think it's a total reset, and that's going to take time. It's going to set you back 2 or 3 years. And what I always try to remind people that want the reset, and I understand people that want to do that, and they've got a good argument, is, 2 or 3 years down the road, there's every likelihood that Jonathan Taylor's not here. Some of these receivers won't be here. Quentin Nelson will probably still be here, but you keep losing good years for really good players. Ryan Kelly's gone, and of course Will Fries wasn't here that long, but a good player. When you reset because of the quarterback, the rest of your team keeps getting older, and those are years you never get back. Especially like with a running back, they've totally squandered 2 all-pro level years like Jonathan Taylor. For a team to have a running back that rushes for 1,800 yards and 20-some touchdowns to not make the playoffs, that's really hard to do.
He's Mike Chappell from CBS 4, Fox 59, joining us here on The Fan. Matt Gay, the kicker, released. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
A little surprised, but it's obvious that, and I know they saved about $2.75 million in the cap, but kickers and special teams players don't, in the grand scheme of things, don't cost you a whole lot. People were up in arms when they gave him a 4-year, $20 million contract that made him like the second highest paid kicker. But it's not a massive contract in budget building and all that. And he just wasn't getting them what they needed. He was like a 92% kicker with the Rams, and with the Colts he's been 82%. And it's really, I posted it on Twitter, on X, that he's like 95%, the last 2 years, 95%. He's missed 3 kicks from 49 in. 53 of 56, I think it is. And he's 11 of 22 from 50 and beyond. And since he had that, set an NFL record with 4 50-yarders in that game in that upset of the Ravens in overtime, he's like 7 of 18 on 50-yarders. And you just can't. It really hamstrings your offense when you can't rely on your kicker kicking 55, 56 yards, whatever. So that has to be the reason. It just has to be that you need more reliability. And they're going to have right now Spencer Schrader, who has a very, very small sample size. He was 5 for 5 last year with the Jets in Kansas City with no 50-yarders. So we'll see.
Interesting. I want to go back to the draft with you for a second, Chap, where I know you made your thoughts known about the Colts not drafting a quarterback, which is fine. Would you hope that Shedeur Sanders drops in the draft, where maybe if the Colts don't go in that direction, it could provide a trade down possibility, right? Would you want that? Or if the Colts bypass Shedeur and he turns out to be good, then those questions come. Why didn't they draft the guy? Would you want Shedeur falls or not? Would you want him to be gone by the time the Colts draft?
I think he'll be gone by the time the Colts draft. I've seen a few mock drafts where he slides, and if you get past like New Orleans at 9, that there's not immediate teams that might need a quarterback. But I think the draft always forces quarterbacks up in teams, because you don't want to be that team in 4 years. We could have taken Shedeur Sanders, and then he's off the charts with somebody else. I don't think he's there. I see zero chance that the Colts would take him to 14. I just don't. It would make no sense at all. But I just think somebody takes him, whether it's the Giants. I've said all along that this was not a good year if you're a team that needs quarterbacks, either a veteran. We saw what the Colts options were, not super. People were upset that they went for Daniel Jones. Who'd you want? Jameis Winston? I mean, there's not a lot out there. Yeah. And the draft isn't exactly overflowing. Cam Ward, all indications are he's going to be pretty good, but boy, you don't know. I thought I saw something where he'd have been the third or fourth quarterback last year if he was in the draft. So this was just not a good year to need either one through the draft or a veteran. Here's Tennessee. They just invested the first pick in the second round in Will Levis, and they may be moving on. So if you're wrong on a tackle or a linebacker or an end or whatever, it hurts. And the Colts have been chasing defensive ends and all this for a while. If you miss on a quarterback, I hope it's not the case, but where the Colts would be if Richardson's not the guy, it sets you back 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. And it's really so detrimental to the growth of your franchise if you don't have that guy and you keep chasing, trying to get that guy.
Yeah, last one for you, Chap, and I'll let you get to the high-scoring kickball affair here. But, from a Colts perspective, what do you think of Cam Ward probably going to the Titans? What do you think about that in the AFC South?
Well, once again, they're getting young quarterbacks in the AFC South. I guess I'd still include Trevor Lawrence in the young quarterback. So, whenever your division has teams that struggle, Jacksonville, Tennessee, and the Colts, you're going to get young talent, and you're going to get elite young talent. Jacksonville got a couple pretty good pass rushers, and Houston gets Stroud, so they're set. They didn't not only get Stroud, they got the pass rusher as well. So when you're in a division that struggles, that's what's going to happen. And that's why I say it comes back. They've got to be right on Richardson, like Houston is apparently with Stroud, and you build a team around him. But that's what the AFC South is, and you always get the young talent, and you got to deal with it. You just hope again that the Colts are right and they can move on and reestablish themselves to relevancy, which right now they're on the edge of not being relevant, which is no place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chap. Well, fun stuff. It sounds like you're still in one piece, right? You haven't been T-boned yet?
Yeah,
that's good.
10 miles outside of Franklin, and 65 is thinned out, so unless there's some knuckleheads out there that, does something crazy on the road, which there's knuckleheads out there. But, I'll post on social media that how Delaney's team did, and hopefully it's a win.
Okay, man, we're pulling for you and your granddaughter. So good stuff, Chap. Always good to catch up with you, man. Hope you have a good day.
See ya. You guys be well.
There he is, Mike. All right, you too. There he is, Mike Chappell, CBS 4, Fox 59. Yeah, man. Wow. He's been to some big games over the years. I'm curious. I was thinking about this too, because we've had a couple of big games lately, right? Where, and I'll get to the Colts here momentarily. I'll get to the Colts here probably in, I would say, 10 minutes, like really getting into the quarterback thing. But there's a lot to react to there from Chap. But the big game thing, just for a minute, because we've seen some big ones. Like I think of the game last night. Luka Doncic goes back to Dallas, drops 45 as a member of the Lakers. It's like, how is this real life right now? So if you're at that game, that's one of those, like, I was at that game where Luka returned, or that Duke-Houston game was I still can't believe Duke lost that game. I don't know how they invented multiple ways to lose that game. But if you were there in person, that's one of those I was at that game moments. And I was just thinking on my resume, the games, what's the biggest game I've been to in person? It was probably the Bush Push game. I've said that before, filling in here, where Reggie Bush pushes Matt Leinart into the end zone, and I guess that was sort of like the precursor to the Eagles tush push. I never got upset about that as a Notre Dame fan. I know it was illegal, but I don't know why. I never got upset about that. I thought that's kind of like a technicality, like a technical way to win a game. Like, oh, technically not a touchdown. Like, I don't know. It just never really registered for me. It would be either that or the Snow Bowl game. It's kind of funny, especially for the Notre Dame fans out there. I went to the game with my mom. It was 1992, Notre Dame, dramatic ending. They scored a touchdown. Jerome Bettis caught a pass, and then they went for two. Reggie Brooks caught it in the side of the end zone. They won by 1 point against Penn State. But it was snowing that day. Notre Dame had this great goal line stand. They hit the Penn State running back when he was trying to jump over the pile. It was a poster. It was a whole thing for Notre Dame. And I believe they were trying to film a scene from Rudy that day. That's what we were told, but because it was snowing, they couldn't do it. So I was there, and they're supposed to film a little bit. That would have been fun for the halftime show, where you're like, what are they doing? They're filming a movie is what they're doing right now, but that was a fun one. It's a well-known one. I'm curious here, before we move off this, James, stud producer, I'll just call you that. What would be on your resume? What's the game, the top game in terms of whatever, crazy ending, it was a big game, it was on a huge stage, the stakes were high, whatever it was, what was the biggest game you've attended in person?
For me, and maybe a little bit of the shine of this game was taken off based on how the season ended, but the 2021, I believe, Saturday night primetime game between the Colts and the Patriots at Lucas Oil Stadium, the Carson Wentz season, where Carson Wentz completed something like 5 passes total, and the Colts just ran the ball every down, and Jonathan Taylor ripped off a huge touchdown run at the very end of the game to seal the win. So the season, unfortunately, I think they won one more game after that against the Cardinals, and everybody thought they were going to the playoffs, and then the final 2 weeks against the Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars happened, so we don't want to talk about that. But that specific game was the craziest environment I've ever been in terms of a live sports event. Craziest crowd I've ever seen at Lucas Oil. So that, and it being against the Patriots, I know it's not the Colts-Patriots rivalry of years past, but it was still really, really cool to get that first win over them in like 10 years in prime time at Lucas Oil Stadium with that crowd.
Hey man, I'm not gonna talk trash about your top game. But we got to rig this thing so you could at least win the Blink-182 concert tickets, just in case something wild happens. We can't have Carson Wentz completing 5 passes as the top of the list there,
I
James.
know.
And you laid it out perfect. I get it. All your reasons make sense, but we can't have Wentz with 5 completions at the top.
That's fair. See, I don't remember that game for Carson Wentz. I remember that game for Jonathan Taylor.
Destroying
the Patriots defense.
I remember one of my friends is like a bigger sports gambler from out east. Morozic is his last name. He sounds like a gambler should sound. He's got like the Massachusetts accent mixed with a gravelly voice. Oh, guy, they're going to run the ball this game, guy. I'm pretty sure he was telling me about it that game where it's like, they're just going to run the ball at will. And that's what they did with JT. And I'm sure it was a crazy atmosphere, especially with the backdrop with the Colts, Patriots, and that whole thing. Sure. Okay, we got to get to the quarterback thing. There were a couple of things that my guy Chap said about the Colts' potential quarterback decision. We'll put it that way. What if Shadour's on the board at 14? What do they do? What decision did they make? There are a couple of things I agree with, a couple of things I disagree with Chap. We'll go down both of them coming up. I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The
JMV.
Hans, Bobby, I'm your white knight.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV here on The Fan. Okay, just got to talk to Mike Chappell. Of course, talking about the Colts draft, and it's got my brain working here. These mock drafts, who knows how it shakes out, but the mock drafts at least have my brain working here, where there are some that have Shedeur Sanders falling, maybe as low as 21st to the Steelers. That's the lowest I've seen. There's so many mock drafts out there. Who knows? Someone might have them in the second round for all I know. But for most that I've seen, it differs. Used to be he was going 3 to the Giants. Now you might see him drop into 9th and the Saints. Mel Kiper Jr. has that. There are some that have Shedeur dropping to 21st and the Steelers. So it got my brain working where I'm like, well, hey, what if Shedeur's still on the board at 14? And the Colts are picking. What do they do? What should they do? There's two different questions. What will they do? What should they do? So there are variables, right? Maybe someone offers them a pretty legitimate trade package. And the Colts sit here and say, well, we're not convinced Shedeur is going to be a franchise quarterback, and we can get a couple extra picks to move down a couple of spots. Let's do that. Maybe that opportunity presents itself. But let's say that's not on the board. That's not possible. And they're just sitting there at 14, and Shedeur is still undrafted. What should they do? I think we mostly know the answer to what they will do, which is they'll probably play it safe. They'll cling on to this ridiculous notion that Anthony Richardson might be their guy now and going forward, which he isn't. Like this dude's completing like 50% of his passes through 2 seasons. I'm sorry, he's not the solution going forward. He's just not. This reminds me of, there are times in life where you have enough information where if you don't come to the right conclusion, then it's your fault. That's where I feel like we are with Anthony Richardson and the Colts right now. Anthony Richardson, you can do a blow-by-blow comparison with Tim Tebow and his NFL numbers. That is really bad. That I can go in times find that Tim Tebow's numbers are better. Remember how we clowned Tim Tebow? Clowned him. He can't throw the ball at the NFL level with any consistency whatsoever. We crushed that guy. He's done better through his 3-year career than Anthony Richardson has done through 2 years. Like, that's dreadful. Anthony Richardson completed less than 48% of his passes last season. That's what Tebow did in his career. And then you can look at attempts and completions, almost a dead heat. Passing yards, very, very similar. Tebow has thrown for what? Let's see, quick math. 31 more yards than Anthony Richardson through this point. Like almost the same amount of completions, almost the same amount of attempts. Tebow had 13 more attempts for 31 more yards. Like, they're neck and neck. You can't be neck and neck with Tim Tebow's NFL career as another quarterback 2 years in and expect that to be going anywhere positive. It's just not going to. Anthony Richardson has missed 19 games over the last 2 seasons. He's either been injured or benched for Joe Flacco. He's thrown more picks than touchdowns. Like, what? Why would you think the light bulb's going to go on and all of a sudden this guy is like, what, just dealing? Come on. It's not good enough to just win the division. You got to get through the likes of Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen, Lamar. The list goes on and on. Like, what? Why would you let Anthony Richardson prevent you from drafting a quarterback who might be a franchise QB? I don't know why that guy would prevent you. I always come back to the Chiefs on this one. The Chiefs had Alex Smith, who was at least a legitimate option He wasn't a top 5, wasn't a top 10 guy, but he could win you games. He was a legitimate starting quarterback. I mean, Alex Smith, he led the league in passer rating when Mahomes was a rookie, and then they moved on to the Mahomes phase, which has worked out great. But the point is, the Chiefs, they could have said, hey, Alex Smith is a legitimate starting quarterback. Yeah, he might not be top 10, but we can win games. If we just surround him with more talent, maybe we could make a deeper run. They could have looked at it like that, but they were like, even though this guy is a competent starter, we want to be better than just that. And they swung for the fences and they hit a grand slam with Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not saying that, Shedeur is going to be Patrick Mahomes? No one's going to be Patrick Mahomes. But Shedeur might be a whole heck of a lot better than Shedeur Sanders is. Do you think, put it this way, what would the Chiefs do? Right? Remember we used to have the bracelets years ago? WWJD, what would Jesus do? To try to trigger, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't, do meth right now, or whatever, try to help you out making better decisions. Well, WWCD, what would the Chiefs do? If the Chiefs had Anthony Richardson as their starting quarterback the last 2 years, it went exactly the way it has the last 2 years from the Colts, do you think they would allow Anthony Richardson to prevent them from drafting a quarterback that falls and might be a franchise guy going forward? Do you think that would prevent them? There's no way in hell Anthony Richardson would prevent the Chiefs from drafting a guy who could pan out. There's no way. And so that's where I am with the Colts. You might not be sold on Shedeur. Okay, I get that. But why would you let Anthony Richardson be the guy who prevents you from taking a chance like that? That's like, we've gotten enough information where if you're still clinging on to hope that Anthony Richardson is the guy, you're clinging on to false hope. It's like, if you're dating a girl and you've got all this information and you arrive at the wrong conclusion, that's on you. Okay, you're dating a girl. She gets a call from John. Hey, who's John? Oh, he's just a friend. Okay, just a friend. Then she bumps into Jeff while you're out. Big hug. Wow, who's Jeff? Oh, he's just a friend. Then her birthday rolls around. Rick posts, happy birthday, babe. Hope to see you soon. Wow, who's Rick? Oh, he's just a friend. At that point, if you're just blindly believing in your girlfriend, it's your fault. It works the same way in sports. That's where a lot of Colts fans are with Anthony Richardson. They invested a 4th overall pick in the guy. Okay. What has he done that provides you any reasonable hope that he's going to be a franchise quarterback for the next decade? What? The 19 games missed, the sucky completion percentage, more interceptions than touchdowns, numbers that rival Tim freaking Tebow? What is it? There's nothing. Nothing. Don't let that guy prevent you from taking a chance. Okay, maybe you're looking to 2026 and saying, hey, I'm just not convinced Shedeur is going to be a franchise guy. Maybe we'll be in a better position the following year. Okay, that's reasonable. But to say, well, don't want to punt on A-Rich just yet. Year 3, I don't know. Maybe he puts everything together. And boom, presto, we've got a player. Okay. Do you still believe in Santa? What else do you believe in? Or you'd be believing in Anthony Richardson. Come on. He had Ricky Pearsall at Florida. Ricky Pearsall's a first-round pick with the Niners. Think of how many quarterbacks in college have put up numbers way better than Anthony. 55% of his passes in college. Think of quarterbacks that put up way better production not throwing to first-round wide receivers. There are a lot of dudes, even playing at a comparable level. Maybe in the SEC or a Power 4 conference. Didn't have talent much to throw to, and they've put up numbers way better than Anthony Richardson. I don't understand any argument where you would let Anthony Richardson like slow you down and prevent you from drafting a guy. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is going to work out. I think there's reason to be hopeful. The guy completes passes. That's a step up from A-Rich. We need someone who can complete throws. That's good. 74 completion rate last year. That 74% is pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, so I would take a swing. I would not, we just did this 2 years ago. You're not anywhere. Here's the thing. This is what I want to stress. Clinging on to Anthony Richardson is doing nothing but slowing down the reset. You need to bring in someone else that could be a franchise quarterback that can be your future. The more you allow Anthony Richardson to get in the way of that and prevent that from happening, you're slowing the whole process down. That's what you're doing. You're not being impatient to a fault. You're not like, we got to allow a little bit more time. No. Allowing more time is doing nothing but slowing down the reset that has to take place. That's it. That's where we're at. Because there's no way Anthony Richardson is going to progress to the point where the Colts have a bona fide starting QB and a good enough team to take down Burrow and the Bengals, Josh Allen and the Bills, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Those guys aren't going anywhere for a long time. A long time. They have a lot of football left ahead of them. So, saying, hey, Rich, he did have that one game in week 8. Come on. You got to be reasonable here. You can't have numbers that rival Tim Tebow and have any legitimate hope at this point. Sorry. That's just a reality check for anyone clinging on to that. It would make no sense to allow Anthony Richardson to prevent you from taking a stab at it. That's all I'm saying here. Feel free to check in. You're more than welcome. Love hearing from all you guys. We'll get to a call right around the corner. I see that James has hit me up and let me know someone is here. That's good. So we'll get to the call and also a hilarious quote from last night. I find this to be very entertaining. I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. Keep it locked right here, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
JMV.
I am the cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV here on The Fan. Okay, caller 9. You're going to see Blink 182. 239-1070. They'll be at Ruoff on September 17th. Yeah. It's funny, too. One of my friends, not a metalhead whatsoever, he was like, hey, I think you'd be proud of me. I went to go see Blink 182. And I didn't have the heart to be like, I'm not proud at all, actually. In terms of, nothing against Blink 182, but in terms of, like, progressing to metal, let's put it like Blink 182 would kind of be like the Glass Joe stage for anybody who's a big Mike Tyson's Punch-Out fan. There are a lot more stages you need to get to the metal phase right there. But hey, man, some people are into them. A lot of people are into them. They get big crowds. So if you want to go see them, caller 9. We'll hook you up. All right, we've also got Darnell on the line, wants to check in, throwing a lot of things your way. Colts quarterback situation, the draft. We've got golfers giving the Heisman stiff arm to media interviews after sucky rounds, all that good stuff. Darnell, what's on your mind? Welcome into the Fan here. Uh-oh. Darnell, you got to turn your radio down, man. I don't know if you're here. You got to cut the radio down, man. You're not in real time. I got you, Darnell.
Hello?
How you doing, buddy? Yep, I got you.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What do you have for me? Can you hear me? Yep. I don't think he can hear. I think he's listening with his radio up. That's all right. Hey, my guy Darnell, rookie mistake. It happens. Every now and then it will happen, but that's okay. Hopefully we'll get back to him. Hilarious quote from last night. So, Mac Engel, he's a columnist now. He was a former player, but he covers the NBA. And he said, I asked Dallas Mavericks coach Jason Kidd to address Mavs fans who feel like there is no hope without Luka. Okay? And he said, I could not believe his answer. This is the answer. Quote, trades happen. Some are comparing it to Babe Ruth, which is kind of cool. And so Mac wrote, not sure he knows if the Mavs are the Red Sox in this situation here. So, yeah, like the Mavs didn't exactly get a haul for Luka. It was very embarrassing. Every now and then, I'll think of these national stories and put it in Indiana context. You know what I mean? Where you might, if you're a Pacers fan, you might not really care if the Mavs dealt Luka to the Lakers. It really might not register. It might be kind of like white noise in the background, like, oh, okay, whatever. How does that affect me and the Pacers and the Eastern Conference, right? Like, you might think of it like that. But I think, can you imagine, just for a second, what your reaction would be if the Pacers did the exact same thing Dallas just did? Doesn't that just blow your mind for a second? Like, think about that. Dallas has won a championship, right, with Dirk. They do have a title. The Pacers don't have one. They have a finals appearance. That's it in terms of pursuing a championship. But imagine if they finally had this premium player, like one of the best players in the entire league, top 5 for sure, maybe top 3, somewhere around there. And they trade him for, I'll say, dimes on the dollar, right? Not quite pennies on the dollar. I won't, talk trash about Anthony Davis to that degree, but dimes on the dollar. You are not getting equal value in a trade for Luka Doncic. You don't open it up to the entire league and get the top haul. You're behind closed doors and having these whispered conversations. Hey, what do you think about we trade you Luka? What do you think about that? Lakers are like, yeah, that sounds great. Imagine what your reaction would be if the Pacers did that instead of the Mavs doing it. And also, I still think about that with the coaching change, with the Nuggets firing Michael Malone. you'd be like, the Pacers just fired Rick Carlisle 3 games before the playoffs? And imagine if all things were equal. Like, Rick Carlisle had won a championship in Indiana. Think about that. Like, that's the only championship Denver has ever won in the NBA. It's 2 years ago, Michael Malone being there as their head coach. And 2 years later, they're firing the guy 3 games before the playoffs. You would lose your mind. And appropriately so if the Pacers did that. It's amazing, some of these NBA stories where, I get it, how much your reaction differs. It makes all the sense in the world. Okay, as a Pacers fan, the Mavs trading Luka to the Lakers, might be a shoulder shrug for you. Okay, as a Pacers fan, the Pacers trading Luka Doncic, your player, for a modest haul at best, you'd be like, it's a sign of the apocalypse. It's amazing how much it changes. No doubt about that. All right, now we do have good and bad news. Depending on your perspective, okay, it might be bad news that we get a little bit of bonus time together. Huh? What do you say? Just like a little 8-minute quickie sports radio session before Pacers pregame and the Pacers game gets underway? That could be bad news for you. Like, more no JMV. That's not ideal. You know, that might be good news for you. Maybe you're enjoying a little, a change of pace right here. So we get a little 8-minute bonus segment before Pacers festivities begin. So we'll do that. Gosh, what are we going to do coming up next? I'll tell you what. We need to play the lottery right away. I'll give you a reason why. And then some golfers, not the biggest metal fans. We'll get that to you as well. We might get a laugh out of you before we get out of here. I'm Brian Noe in for JMV. A little bonus time coming up next. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I'm Brian Noe in for JMV here on The Fan. All right, we got a lot to do here. First off, shout out to Darnell. So he texted me. So Darnell, he's with the Indy Thunder, right? Beep Baseball. I've gone out. He's actually here in Vegas last week. Got to link up with him. Indy Thunder won their round-robin tournament, so shout out to them. And he said he's a sports radio vet. It was on the phone lines. He couldn't hear me. So it's all good, but he texted me and said that, so I wanted to get that out there. Also, we need to start playing the lottery right away. That's one of the lessons from today's show here, James. So a couple of odds I'll throw your way. The odds to have a perfect bracket when you're doing the men's NCAA tournament, 1 in 9.22 quintillion. Okay, so long odds. There was a story here. Someone filled out a nearly perfect bracket for the women's NCAA tournament this year. 62 out of 63 correct predictions. The only one that was missed was Indiana's first round game. This person picked Utah to win that game, and it was IU. That was the only pick they got wrong, the only one. So the odds to have a perfect women's NCAA tournament bracket, still pretty long. That would be 1 in 120 billion, okay? One pick away from a 1 in 120 billion long shot. Now, here's the thing, James. The odds are looking much better to win the Powerball jackpot. Just a measly 1 in 292 million. I mean, compared to 120 billion or 9.2 quintillion, 292 million's nothing.
I mean, it's practically a shoo-in that you're going to win.
Yeah. Like, how are we not playing every day with odds like that? That one person almost hit a perfect bracket in the women's side. That's, I don't know how you go 62 or 63. That's insanity right there. Now, still keeping tabs of the Masters. So right now, Justin Rose, he's your first round leader. He's at -7. And I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's obnoxious, but I think it's hilarious. So it's Chris Vernon. He does these like Masters updates. It's like your Augusta Day 1 update, or however he titles it. He's with Grind City Media. He's done this for years. And he just raps the results of each day. And it's hilarious. But here's a little taste of Chris Vernon doing his thing about an Augusta recap. Check this out.
That's what's going on at Augusta.
So that's all it is. It's like however long the video is. It could be 8, 10, 15 minutes. And he's just rapping the results. Some might look at me and be like, Brian, you got to get a hobby, man. This is your idea of it. Yes, this is highly entertaining to me. This is from a couple of years ago. This is not the leaderboard today. But one of the updates of Cameron Smith is pretty funny to me. Check this out.
Cameron Smith, the 2-1. He's an Aussie.
That's all they do. They just rap. So it'll be like, Justin Rose, 7 under. And they'll just keep, that's your update. Give me that all day. Over these boring, like, whispered, hushed tones of, and Rory McIlroy on the 17th. No, give me Chris Vernon. That's what's going on at Augusta. Give me that all day. Now, James, I got some bad news here. Not littered with metalheads. The PGA Tour, Live Golf, not littered with it. We do have one. We do have one brave soldier. That would be our guy, Victor Hovland. Okay, so this was a video from a couple of years ago. This is the Ryder Cup Europe team. This was on Instagram. So what does it have to do with now, you're asking? This is 2 years ago, Brian. Get with the times. Live in the now, as Garth Algar once said on Wayne's World, right? Well, there are a couple of guys on the leaderboard right now at the Masters in this year's tournament, not big metalheads. Okay, so they might take a nosedive over here with the leader. It's something to keep in mind. So this 2 years ago, this is Victor Hovland, big metalhead, big metal guy. Listen to one of the songs he's very fond of. Check this out from Vic.
It's by Humanity's Last Breath. It's called In Still.
Okay, so that's what our guy Vic Hovland is working with. All right, like Swedish metal. He loves like some crazy stuff here. So what they did, they let the other golfers sample some of Victor Hovland's music, right? And they were not fond of it. Now our guy, Tyrrell Hatton, he's at -3. He's 5th right now in the Masters standings for this year's tournament, right? Good first day, 3 under, first round, not bad at all. This was Tyrrell Hatton's reaction to the music that Victor Hovland is very fond of. Check this out.
I think you played that for like 15 seconds too long there.
Yeah, okay. Not huge on it. And he goes on. Further detail from Tyrrell Hatton. Check this out. Not a big metalhead.
I mean, I don't need any more rage in my life.
Okay. All right. So it's not his cup of tea. Also, Rory McIlroy. He just went in the drink. You know, he's dropping in the standings. Maybe it's because he doesn't like metal. Wow. He had a double bogey. And he went from -4 to -2. So he dropped all the way to a tie for 6th place. Here is Rory McIlroy's reaction to the metal music. Check this out.
Sounds like the devil.
All right, we got time. One more from Rory McIlroy. Check this out.
That's like the most horrific thing I've ever heard in my life. The music and the beat's okay, but then when the guy starts to sing, it's horrendous.
Yeah, okay. Wow, James. Not a fan right there. Maybe that's why he put it in the drink. You know, double bogey. If he was a metal guy, you know, hell, he might have been an eagle. Might have gone the other way if he was a metal guy. All right, we learned a lot of stuff. James, we need to play the lottery a lot more often. The odds are in our favor compared to a perfect bracket in the men's or women's tournament. And Colts got to draft Shedeur Sanders, right? Did you learn that today, James? They got to draft Shedeur or not so much?
I guess I did.
That's a yes. All right, stay tuned. Colts Daily with Matt Taylor, Jeffrey Gorman. Shout out to him. And then the Pacers. We'll catch you later.